this is a public conversation. This show has been going almost a year. We're on twice a month on Thursday nights, but this is a brand new time for the show. We've been on at 10 o'clock in the evening on Thursday nights. And due to enormous consumer demand, we've been, actually it's because of staffing here at NCAT, we're now shifting to 8 o'clock. It's a live show. It's a call-in show. And you'll be able to call in a little bit later in the show. Tonight we're going to be talking a lot about the land deal at Fort Missoula, the petition drive that's going on this week. And we're going to have two guests from that organizing drive, Tom Reese and Jerry Behrens, and they'll be on in a few minutes. And you'll be able to participate yourselves when you see the sign on your television screen saying that the lines are open. Feel free to call in with your questions or your comments. But I thought that in honor of Martin Luther King's birthday, the 15th of January, I thought it would be appropriate to recall at least some of Dr. King's language, and I chose some words that Martin Luther King gave almost 29 years ago when he did America proud and accepted the Nobel Prize for Peace in 1964, and he was in Oslo to accept the award. And these are excerpts from what Martin Luther King had to say on that wonderful occasion. After contemplation, Dr. King said, I conclude that this award which I receive on behalf of our movement is profound recognition that nonviolence is the answer to the crucial political and moral question of our time, the need for man to overcome oppression and violence without resort to violence and oppression. Civilization and violence are antithetical concepts. Negroes of the United States, following the people of India, have demonstrated that nonviolence is not sterile passivity, but a powerful moral force which makes for social transformation. Sooner or later, all the people of the world will have to discover a way to live together in peace and thereby transform this pending cosmic elegy into a creative psalm of brotherhood. If this is to be achieved, man must evolve for all human conflict a method which rejects revenge, aggression, and retaliation. The foundation of such a method is love. And from the depths of my heart, I am aware that this prize is much more than an honor to me personally. And when the blazing light of truth is focused on this marvelous age in which we, men and women, and Dr. King went on to say, and when the blazing light of truth is focused on this marvelous age in which we live, men and women will know and children will be taught that we have a finer land, a better people, a more noble civilization, because humble children of God were willing to suffer for righteousness' sake. I accept this award today with an abiding faith in America and an audacious faith in the future of mankind. I refuse to accept the idea that the darkness of man's present nature makes him morally incapable of wakening up for the eternal oughtness that forever confronts him. I refuse to accept the idea that man is mere flotsam and jetsam in the sea of life which surrounds him. I refuse to accept the view that mankind is so tragically bound to the starless midnight of racism and war that the bright daybreak of peace and brotherhood can never become a reality. I refuse, Dr. King said, I refuse to accept the cynical notion that nation after nation must spiral down a militaristic stairway into hell of thermonuclear destruction. I believe that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word in reality. That is why right, temporarily defeated, is stronger than evil triumphant. I believe that even today, amidst mortar bursts and whining bullets, there is still hope for a brighter tomorrow. I believe that wounded justice, lying prostrate on the blood-flowing streets of our nations, can be lifted from this dust of shame to reign supreme among the children of men. And I have the audacity to believe that peoples everywhere can have 3 meals a day for their bodies, education and culture for their minds, and dignity, equality, and freedom for their spirits. I believe that what self-centered men have torn down, other men, other-centered, can build up. And I still believe that one day mankind will bow before the altars of God and be crowned triumphant over war and bloodshed, and nonviolent redemptive goodwill will proclaim the rule of the land. And the lion and the lamb shall lie down together, and every man shall sit under his own vine and fig tree, and none shall be afraid. I still believe that we shall overcome. Dr. Martin Luther King accepting the Nobel Prize for Peace in 1964. So happy birthday to Dr. King and to America. I've been following the Fort Missoula land deal involving the University of Montana and its financial arm, a foundation whose development director is Ted Delaney. And I've watched as they've worked with an outfit called Divot Development to turn the land that the University of Montana took title to, I believe, in 1967, when the federal government, that is to say the government supposedly controlled by all of us, declared some of the Fort Missoula property to be surplus and no longer necessary for military purposes. And so the government said, anyone who wants to take a lick at this property, come ahead. And so Missoula County, and as I understand it, the high schools and the University of Montana all took advantage to one degree or the other of this opportunity. And the University of Montana, with a grant of federal tax dollars from, I believe it was the Department of Housing, Education, and Welfare at the time, 1967, got a grant of $170,000 with which to pay the federal government for the 83 acres to which they then took title. And there was a rider, or whatever it's called, in that contract which suggested that this land, this is the university talking at the time, would be used for educational purposes. So, all these years go by since 1967. Apparently 20 years later, 1987, these riders, as they were to the federal university land deal, expired or went away somehow, and there was no further restriction in terms of whether the land needed to be used for educational purposes. At least that's the university story at the present time. And so now we come to a point in which the university has decided that it would be in the best interest of themselves to sell the land to private developers at a cost of about $5,500 per acre for a parcel of 83 acres, which faces the Bitterroot River, the fort, a couple of golf courses, and the university or the foundation says that they'll take this capital and use it to create scholarships for students. I talked to a financial person in town who suggested that the price that they get, the total price of $400 and some odd thousand, if they put it in a permanent escrow fund, might produce as much as $30 odd thousand a year for scholarships. I think I felt right along that the just on that level of American free enterprise that the price was a pretty good deal. I'd like to get 83 acres in the heart of Missoula on the river for $5,500. And then on the other hand, we hear discussion about the university acquiring 7 acres on another river up near the university, which they'll acquire this riverfront acreage to put up a parking lot, and they'll pay, what, $128,000 an acre at that point. So people are kind of sniffing their noses and wondering what the hell is going on. And George Dennison, the president of the university, sent out a letter because as the criticism has grown about this deal over the last several weeks or months since the city council approved the zoning changes which would be necessary for this development to move forward. That is to say, the construction of as many as 303 homes, most of which will be, for Missoula, luxury homes, unaffordable by the majority of us. And anyway, George Dennison sent out a letter of explanation recently to some critics that he had heard from. And then the foundation and Ted Delaney said that the president of the university was mistaken. So what is the foundation? Who is the foundation? When did they decide to do this deal? Was this property put out for bid? Did others have a chance to bid on it? Does the foundation vote on matters like this, or does one person decide to sell the land? There's a lot that we don't know, and so the people of Missoula have decided to get involved. And with that, I'll introduce our guests, Tom Reese and Jerry Behrens. Come on in, and thanks for coming down.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. I
All right.
appreciated that
Yeah.
about
Good to see you.
Martin Luther King. Great, good job.
Yeah, thanks.
Nice seeing you.
Tom Reese right here, and Jerry Behrens. So, just so.
You've got some very strong feelings.
Oh yeah, I'm known as a man with strong feelings about a lot of things. So, I just wanted to acquaint the audience a little bit with you fellas. And Tom, as I understand it, you were with the Forest Service for many years, 27 years.
2 months and 2 days.
Okay, that's and took a retirement, and you've been gone into business for yourself and doing training and education around the country.
Yes.
You have several children here, and
4.
a couple of them went to the University of Montana.
Yes, they did.
And
One graduated in journalism and now has his own business in Kalispell, Montana.
Right. And Jerry Behrens, you were in the military when you were a young chap, and then you went into the business of economics and financial consultancy, and that's what you did with most of your professional career?
Most of my professional career was that in business, and now raising 2 children, 8 years of age, married, and a scoutmaster.
Great. So, what's the story? Why are you here? Why are you involved in this petition drive? Tell folks about, I mean, it seems like the whole town knows what it's all about already, but...
Well, I'm a Johnny-come-lately. I have to admit that. I followed the fort for many, many, many years. Many years ago when we first came to Missoula, 1975 to be exact, and I've been a naturalized citizen of Montana, living here for over 30 years, in fact, over 40 years now. We used to run, my wife and I used to run around out there, by running around trying to get some of this flab off our bodies. Anyhow, I became very closely associated with the fort during my tenure at the University of Montana under the, K. Ross Toole was my mentor, a fine man, a good friend. And these types of things that were constantly coming up when I recounted to him when I first came to Montana, I was over by Great Falls. And I had heard stories about these forts out here in the west, and there was one in Missoula, and there was one in Fort Shaw.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the only fort that I heard between here and wherever.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I'd like to go and see Fort Shaw. And I went and saw Fort Shaw, and it was a pile of rubble about as big as this table. And that was it.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else had been developed around it. And I felt very, very sad that, and a thought came to me, you know, I really feel that Montana, being young and vigorous and alive, at times doesn't have a very good sense of history, and a sense of history that Ross Toole really accelerated in my mind. Long story. Going to the University of Montana, where I was, after I'd gotten my undergraduate degree, I attended the University of Montana. I was teaching at Alberton at that time, and went to the University of Montana, talking to Ross Toole. We did more investigation and more fun and research with Fort Missoula, so the place became very dear to me through a historical perspective. Then working with the Forest Service, not only that, but not only from a historical perspective, but from a biological or ecological perspective also. And what a treasure Fort Missoula is to western Montana. And then in investigating, the sign over at the Fort Missoula Historical Museum says it all. In 1877, Captain Charles Round and his group of soldiers started working on that. It's a tremendous heritage. At the beginning of December, I went out of state, my wife and I, to visit one of my sons who lives out of state, who happens to be a civil engineer. And at that time, I thought that everything was in good hands. Everything was in good hands. I knew that there was going to be something possibly happening with that project over at Fort Missoula, and but it was in good hands, and there's no way that that was ever going to go through. I thought that the people.
You mean when you first heard that this was
Yes.
deal was a possibility?
The deal was a possibility, but I also knew that the planning department was going to come out with their recommendation, and I gave great credence and credit to our city fathers that they would do what was right, good, to my way of thinking, good, true, and beautiful. So I left, and I should not have done that. I think I should have stayed and maybe done some more spreading the word, if you want to say it that way. When I came back last week, I wondered, well, whatever happened to the development of Fort Missoula? It passed. Well, I went bananas.
Just to put things in order, though, and somebody can help me out here, it was the city-county planning board that actually voted against the project in the middle of all this process. So that was so there was people trying to watch out.
Yeah, I felt secure.
Yeah, and then they had made that, right? Isn't that
Yes.
the city-county, is that what it's called, the city-county planning board?
The planning board, a group of appointed citizens that passed judgment on projects like this ahead of the city council had voted against this project. And those of us that were very concerned about this project took great comfort in that planning board making that decision, felt that that the city council would follow in their footsteps and also deny the project. And but we started getting word and starting getting the impression that maybe there might be a favorable consideration to this project. Many of us attended, and this is when I became involved. I'm retired and would prefer to be spending my time fishing and working my shop, but found myself attending city council meetings and making presentations regarding the usage of this property and the negative impact it's going to have on the Target Range School District and the negative impact upon the environment and the loss of open space. And this is and if it's only this one project, which some people would want us to believe that it's only this one project, you may say, well, okay, I'm kind of on the fence and I'll go along with this. But those of us that are starting to get involved in this process are realizing that this is just the first step. It appears that the university or the University Foundation is in the final stages of negotiation on a parcel of land along South Avenue, a Fort property that was also granted to them through the same vehicle that you spoke about earlier. Additionally, the county is in discussion regarding some equestrian facilities that are in the Fort planning area and converting those into mobile homes. So we have a whole series of developments that seem to be in lockstep with the divot plan, and the divot plan appears to be the spearhead or the leader or whatever you want to call it that is pushing this movement and development of the fort forward. In fact, the folks that are suggesting the purchase of the land from the county, when asked what they were going to pay for it, they said, well, we would hope to get the same price that divot does. And so would all of us. So as a result, that's the reason for my involvement. It was early on, and was quite shocked when the city council on that ill-fated day in December decided to approve the project.
That was December the 20th, and that was when I was in California with
The
my
Christmas
grandchildren.
Eve massacre.
Yes, and I came back, and I was desolate at that. And when I received a phone call from a couple of people that said, would you be interested? Of course I'm interested.
You mean in starting
And getting involved
right.
in this. In fact, it was just exactly 1 week ago that I made the commitment. Yes, I want to get involved. How can I do it? And I met with a couple. There were about 6 or 7 of us, a very small group, and said, well, but many people in the interim, when I started asking questions around town, they said, what happened? What happened? Where were you? You know, and I said, oh my word, why wasn't I here to do something about this? So we started this working together. And who are our leaders? We are no leaders.
Yeah,
are none.
no, it's interesting because I had, knew certainly, as a lot of people do know in Montana, that we do have the local initiative and referendum option, and we rarely use it on the local level. But
I was asked that yesterday. A person, and I won't say where or for what. I'll use the word reporter loosely. A reporter asked me why I thought that we had this right to do what we are doing, and I was dumbfounded. I kept saying, my word, the Constitution. I mean, I think we have 3 or 4 rights, that we protect very zealously. One is the right to elect people. One is a right to recall people. And we also have a right to have a referendum, to petition to referendum to wrong mistakes that we think our government has made.
Well, the impression. I mean, I've been helping gather signatures. I mean, let's let the folks at home who, they've seen. There must be well over 100 people around town gathering signatures now. Just a personal note, I had stopped in to see one of the county attorneys about 2 weeks ago, saying, well, I wanted to check up on the referendum process, right? But here I was, and I'm not really an organizer. And he said, well, here's the state thing, and you have to submit the language to the attorney and stuff like that. And I thought to myself, I said, it was about 2 weeks, because there was the window of opportunity is, next Tuesday is it. So I kind of went home and I shrugged my shoulders. I just thought, there's no way I can get right language and show it. So then when I picked up the paper Sunday and saw that there was a meeting on this Monday night, it was just amazing. That the meeting was Monday night, this past Monday night, and today is Thursday, and my understanding is that there's already 3,000 or 4,000 signatures.
There's actually, as of last night, after 48 hours of soliciting signatures, we have collected over 5,000 signatures, and that's as of last night. And each day, obviously, the count mounts. And another side effect to this, which is of very strong public benefit to the community, is that we've registered over now 360 new voters. Some examples, a man hadn't voted for 30 years, is so outraged by this vote, has decided to come back and vote again. I mean, students, people that have moved, a whole body of people that have been activated as a result of this particular issue.
You were at the meeting Monday night.
Right.
And that was the first meeting really,
Right.
that we actually had. Did you notice the spectrum
Oh,
of people?
Well, I mean, I was at the downtown post office gathering signatures on Tuesday, and I know, I mean, I'm a downtown person, and so I know a lot of faces, and that's my post office. But I mean, when you stand there, of course, you see a lot of faces that if you're standing
Yes,
there for
right.
hours. But the spectrum of people who were coming up, and I had people online. I didn't have to explain anything. They saw the Save the Fort poster. They were racing to get at that petition. So, I mean, there were people who were pulling up in very nice automobiles that I would like to have and don't. Clearly people who were considered, well off, and it went the whole spectrum. There were people in their 80s and 90s, women and men. They said, I want, what's going on? And the variety of reasons for why they were signing the petition was also remarkable. Discussed with the university and how this, they say, well, how did this unfold? I want to know more. Saving the land itself, or luxury housing, when, in other words, if the but a lot of flack at the university.
Yeah, which I think a lot of it is actually undeserved.
Mm.
I think, again, I'd like to go back to what we were talking about previously, Sunday and Monday when we first started to get to going. And it was that we think, we're pretty sure somebody made a mistake.
Mhm.
Now, we don't know if it was the university or the
Mhm.
foundation, and we don't fault, I don't default Divot Development, for heaven's sakes. Who was the President of the United States that said the business of America is business? And this is a business opportunity, for heaven's sakes. You said right in your preliminary remarks, wouldn't it be great that if you could buy something like that, buy low, sell high. That's the American way, and we have no argument with that.
Well, I guess I do, as I suggested, I have an argument or a question as to say, well, how do things like this unfold? What I get over the years, is that people feel left out of decision-making and process. In other words, like I said, what is the foundation? How does it do its business? Do either of you guys know?
We have not been very
Right.
actively involved in the foundation.
Right,
And we understand the foundation is,
We don't know.
according to the president, president of the university, Mr. Dennison, is acting as an agent for the university and disposing of these and the other phases of the fort for development. But our central issue is, and it's something that ties in with your question, these questions that you have, and other people have other questions.
Right.
And as you said, so many people have so many diverse reasons for trying to understand this. And we feel that what's occurred is that this process took place largely between the holidays, a time when people are actively involved in shopping, putting food on the table, and people
Right.
have their lives to lead.
Right.
And people like Tom were out of town, and all of a sudden they come back, or they get back into the real world again after the
Yes.
holidays. It's January. What how did that happen? And we didn't hear much about it. Well, there was some explanations, and there was some press, but there certainly wasn't the volume of press that we're receiving now that we started this drive. And as a result of that, people are now saying, I want to know more, and I want to have the time
Which is good.
to analyze the issue and to make an informed decision. And I think I, as a citizen, have a right to vote on the disposal or the privatization of public lands.
That's
And
the
that's the
bottom
key
line.
issue here.
If maybe our director could bring up those notes about the Save the Fort referendum, we can keep on talking. By next Tuesday, which is January 18th, that's the final day for submission of signatures. Only Missoula city residents who are registered to vote may sign petitions, that is to say, and have
Right.
them validated. The number of signatures necessary to place this issue on the ballot is 4,009,
4,900, say
4,900.
5,000
Yes.
approximately.
and we
We have 5,000 signatures as of last night. However, there's a side issue here, is that the number of county people that just so vehemently want to
right.
sign the petition,
Right.
they walk up and you say city, and they're so emotionally involved with the
Right.
issue that they want to sign that they're not hearing city, county.
Right.
So to be safe, we're setting goals for ourselves of 7 to 10,000 to go ahead and
Right.
to attempt to ensure that we will not be short on Tuesday when the vote comes in.
Okay, and if the petitions are validated with a sufficient number of signatures, then it will go on the ballot
In June.
In
June.
At the same token, we've also allowed those people who are outside the city limits a vehicle in which they can voice their protest. And that is through that other.
It's called a signature ad, and what the citizens outside the city are doing is they're signing a petition and they're placing their names on the petition with the intent of having their name published in the newspaper in support of this issue. And the reality is that this particular development does not only affect the citizens of the city of Missoula, it affects the entire valley.
And when you look at what from the historical perspective, a very selfish perspective, if I might say so, but if you look at the historical perspective, it affects more than the city of Missoula, the city or the county of Missoula, the state of Montana. It affects anyone that is a citizen of the United States. I feel very strongly about that.
And then, so that for those who are still not up to speed on this, what will happen on the ballot in June, and I imagine from what I'm seeing this week that will be on the ballot,
Yes.
the issue will be on the ballot, and that ballot will give citizens the opportunity to accept the city council's rezoning of the land, which is necessary, in this case for its development, or to reject the city's council's action in making
Right.
those zoning changes.
Yes.
And that's it.
My impression too, while this is an obvious example, my impression from being around town, especially in the last month as people talk about this issue, is that it's almost like the straw that's breaking the camel's back, is that people are saying, wait a minute, we've got so many development problems in the city and in the county that this is too much. We got to slow down. It's like that guy that was at the guy that was at City Council the other night from one of the rattlesnake associations, and he stood up there and he said, "Look," he said, "let's have a moratorium on all building permits until you people get your act together and make a master plan that's solid." So I mean, that was one expression that I was
to say amen to that. I have had several calls from out of state, from as far away, and true story, Tucson, Arizona. A graduate, University of Montana, a friend, heard about it somehow, and he calls me. He said, "They can't do that," and I said, "We're not questioning whether they can. We're, what we believe is what has been done has been legal. Either the city council, the University Foundation, the University of Montana, we believe that wholeheartedly. It's legal. That is not the question. The question is, are we going to get the referendum out? Are we going to get it signed? And if we can get, if we can get it on the ballot to repeal that ordinance, great."
See, we'll see. Go ahead, Jerry.
I'm sorry. I think what's occurred here is that the citizens are experiencing really quite a phenomenal rate of growth in all directions from the city, and in many cases the citizens years ago were asking for growth and needed some growth because the community was on hard economic times. Now that we're experiencing this growth, and the growth seems to be at an accelerated pace, now citizens are standing up and taking a deep concern regarding what will be left after this growth takes place. Will there be urban islands of quiet open space to go ahead and take an afternoon lunch and go fish, say, at the fort for someone that works at Shopko? Or will they have to drive to Rock Creek to fish?
Right.
There are questions like this that people are saying, wait, let's stop, let's think. And many of us feel that the fort is the ideal place for a large regional park to provide this corridor of open space that many planned communities have thought about and have developed.
Well, when I think about the university and its need for growth, I mean, because it's always building, whether it's dorms or whatever, and I say, well, wait a minute, why can't we get together and universalize the university? And if you got the land for educational purposes, we could have a nice, maybe a little satellite institution there, whatever it is, whether it was a natural history
Sure.
center or even a mini school of naturalists or whatever. I mean, but
Yeah.
but there's
See,
no
I
room.
thought that was the intent when they bought it, that it was going to be used for educational, scientific purposes. Okay, everybody's.
Okay, I think
did say
I think
something wrong?
we've got callers that are anxious to talk to us. So the phone lines are open.
There was a question on why county residents cannot vote.
County residents, as I understand it, cannot vote in this election because it's a city. I mean, in this case, it's the city council that took the action, and so county people cannot approve or disapprove of.
What
The
happened
city-
was, what the
city.
county originally, the property was originally zoned county public zoning.
Mhm.
The land was annexed into the city, and then after that annexation took place, then the city in turn voted on the change in zoning to residential to provide for the 300-unit development. And what this petition does is to ask the citizens whether or not they want this zoning to residential development to take place, or whether it should remain as publicly zoned land.
Of course, I think county residents, and I too was hearing from them, as they could not sign the petition. And, I guess maybe it's a sign to them that they, have to dig their heels
Yeah,
in
yeah.
even farther.
But there's an awful lot of pluses on that also. I think an awful lot of the citizens are waking up to the fact and say, hey, we've got to get a little bit more involved. Maybe many of us prior to this were either misinformed, ill-informed, or we're just apathetic towards the way our government works and what's going on. And I would dare say there are literally thousands of county residents out there now saying, by golly, if something is going to affect me like this, I'm going to start listening and paying attention to what's going on, not only in the county commissioners, but also the city council.
But, Tom, I think I detect that from what you've said that I'm a more cynical person than you are.
No.
I want to know. I do. I am. I can't imagine. It's very. There must be some terribly naive people advising the university if they did not even begin to realize the outcry that would come here.
I think we've seen that over and over. I think we've seen it all the way from local government all the way to our national government. Let the professionals tell us
Right.
what's good for us.
Right.
And the professionals tell us what's good for us, therefore, we lay back and say, isn't this wonderful? And we just, we become very apathetic towards things, and then all of a sudden, something like this comes up, and they say, how did this happen? And I think you wouldn't have to go far to look at our national government, our state government, or our county government, or our local government.
I notice one of the things, very tiny thing that bugs me in following the press and the university's PR on this too, is that they keep referring, like in the Missoulian's editorial the other day, the 83 knapweed-infested acres, as if, what a blessing that we're finally
God
going to be
love
able
'em.
to unload this knapweed, and, isn't this a
Can
gift?
I ask a question?
Is this a gift that we're going to...
I'll ask this question. Who is the caretaker of that property?
Well, that's exactly right. The University of Montana is the caretaker, and if
And
they don't
why-
like the knapweed, why didn't they do something about it 20 years
Well, I
ago?
thought it was supposed to be used for a scientific, for the grasses, the forbs, the shrubs, and whatever, on that 83 acres.
Let's get to the stable soon. Hello, you're on the air. You're on the air.
Hello. I had a question about one of the editorials to the Missoulian recently that came in concerning the University of Montana selling off the museum collection that was stored in the science building. Are you aware of that?
We read the same editorial, and that individual has joined this effort and is out collecting petitions. I did not have the opportunity to speak with him, the one that wrote the editorial, but it is our same understanding. And again, this is just another issue where people look at this situation and start to get involved and start to get concerned about it, because the people that are alumni to the university had collected things for this historical collection and hoped that it would be back on display again, and it had been stored at the fort, as we understand it. I personally do not know about the sale of that land, but I read that same editorial and was likewise disturbed.
Well, yes, I believe that the items that were in the museum were also from the Missoula public. I know I had an uncle who had donated objects there. And what had happened was 2 years ago that the University of Montana decided to de-access everything. And what they did is they sent it to Butterfield Auction House in San Francisco. And because they wanted to have the auction remain anonymous, as opposed to having a catalog sale which would be publicized and photographed as such, what they did is they had what they called a Tuesday night warehouse auction sale of the University of Montana Museum.
See, this is good information. This is all news to me.
Well, I called the Missoulian and I called the Missoula Independent, and neither one wanted to hear more about this or do anything about it. I feel that in a way there is a protectionism of the University of Montana.
Has KUFM Montana Public Radio been carrying much news on this issue?
They have. They attended the first press conference on Sunday,
Yes.
where we announced the intent to start soliciting petitions on the following day. They were one of 3 of the media that were present. The Independent was present, and the 2 television stations were present. So actually, there were 4 media representatives there.
But have they made? I mean, has their reporting gone into reporting on what the university? I mean, have they attempted to cover it as reporters? That I'm talking about Montana Public Radio. I mean, what the foundation did and when it did it. And
I have not.
I haven't heard from them. We've been both interviewed by the student newspaper at the university, but certainly as to getting into the depth of these types of discussions and the questions that have been raised, we've not seen a lot of coverage on that. We understand, though, that there is some very strong investigative reporting taking place at this time, but we don't know the outcome of that.
Caller, anything else?
No, I just want to thank you.
Okay, and thanks for the call and that information. That's a little refresher course for me.
Okay, thank you.
All right, bye.
I wonder if they sold.
Hello,
some
you're
of
on the air.
stuff I gave them.
Hello.
You're on the air.
I have a question and a comment. First, the question. The document itself, the petition, was that drawn up by an attorney, a professional, or was it drawn up by a member of the group?
The document was drawn up by, well, it's a collaboration between the group and the city attorney, who, along with the elections office,
The county elections
office, reviewed and re-reviewed this document many times since Tuesday of the previous week. In fact, it took from Tuesday of the previous week till Monday of this week to get the final form of that document so that it would be legal. And we frankly have to thank Mr. Nugent, the attorney for the city, in the assistance that he rendered to us as citizens, and took a very objective position in this, and that's quite admirable considering his position with the city and the city's vote that they took on this. So we feel that it is a very legal document, and obviously, given the the petition signatures have been granted, we feel been garnered, rather, we feel very confident that this is going to be on the June ballot.
So this language then came from within the group and was kind of co-authored by Mr. Nugent and refined?
I wouldn't say necessarily
No.
co-authored, but
I think it's-
reviewed and given guidance to
I think-
ensure that it met the legal requirements.
Because the law, as I reviewed it myself a couple of weeks ago, in other words, that's the process that you go through. I mean,
That's true.
I mean, it's not so much that the city attorney co-authors the petition, but that he makes sure that what the petitioners want to accomplish is legal in its language, and so, I mean, he's acting as a public servant in that
Yes.
situation.
Which is his
Yeah,
position.
right.
But one could be a little delaying and other things, and there was none of that.
Oh,
So
sure,
we-
no,
we-
Jim
did-
is-
we-
Which was very, very
Right,
good,
very
and
helpful.
that's what I mean. I mean,
Yeah.
I've seen bureaucrats that have done the reverse.
Yeah,
And this,
just-
right,
right.
we could have been still sitting here waiting
Right.
for
Yeah.
petitions. So
Right.
we feel,
That
we
was-
wanted to thank him very
It
much.
went to the,
I think most people have a high degree of regard for be an underlying issue here which may be driving the fear regarding development here in Missoula, and that is environmental degradation and the fact that Missoula residents are suffering illness on the basis of their continued exposure to bad air and are suffering chemical injury. These developments seem to be going in with very little regard for environmental impact statements and for public health. And I'd like you gentlemen to comment on that aspect of the development issue, if you would.
I can't know, I don't know. I can't.
We're not environmental scientists, and our big concern, which would somewhat run along the lines of what you're speaking is that our big concern is we think there's a big need for open space in the community, or retention of the open space. The community does have nice open space, however, it's in the process of being heavily utilized, and so this is a step in which would help towards less pollution in the community by having more open space. So I think it falls into that spectrum, and that's just another reason why people are signing this petition.
Well, okay, caller.
Thank you very much, and good luck in your efforts.
Thank you very much.
Another thing about that caller, we received the petition. The Friday was when the petition went to the county elections office, if I'm correct. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Sure.
We didn't get it back from the printer until Monday, and that was at 5 o'clock, because I know 5 o'clock I was stapling petitions together, and we did not get them out on the street until late Monday night, so...
Circling the stable, and maybe you guys are more up to date on this. I get the impression that the builders, if they were to ever succeed in their development there, really don't want the stable there.
I read the ordinance, and I saw nothing in there specifically on what they were going to do with the stable.
There's been a number of suggestions. One, there's been...
But is there anything in the ordinance?
Not in the ordinance itself, but the developers at public hearing, had discussed moving it, had discussed demolition. There was a tremendous discussion at City Council regarding the debate whether it could be destroyed in 3 months or destroyed over a longer period. So,
well, just and we've got a caller, but it's just a philosophical. I always, when I think about art or architecture or things that I don't know about, in a professional way, but that I'm a human being and I like beautiful things, and I say, well, now, geez, if I was an architect, wouldn't I wish to kind of, assuming we're building to go forward, wouldn't I wish to preserve something, even though other people say, well, really, it's just a big, homely building, right? Well, it is a big, homely building, but it has value because it's big and homely, and it's capacious. It's got room for things to happen in, and it's already built. So I'd rather put some money into fixing it up than to tearing it down.
well, there are some architects in town that have restored historical buildings and have turned them into their offices. So
I have to make 2 comments. Number 1 comment, I had 1 comment from one person who said that, that would be a great place to store RV RV vehicles for the people who live there. The other one, now the other comment was that has got to be preserved. And this was from a
for golf carts?
No. For its historical significance. This was from a landscape architect licensed in the city or the state of Washington, and he said, Dad, don't let them do that.
Right. Hold on a second. Hello, you're on the air.
Hi, I was wondering if any of you gentlemen are members of Missoula's Open Space Committee, and if so or not, why and are they involved in the Save the Fort effort?
I received a card and asking to attend your last meeting, which was, I believe, sometime last week was that, or we've been so actively involved in this process that unfortunately I haven't been able to attend your meeting, but would look forward to partaking in your group and joining the group, because we're very much, at least I am personally, very much in favor of open space, and I know many of the people that are signing these petitions are in favor of open space.
I plead guilty, and I would welcome a card.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, and I guess I do have somewhat of a deserved reputation for being a gadfly and an idea person, but because I've talked about this fort issue before on this program, not as intensively where the whole show was given over to it, but if there's a concern about scholarships, right? I mean, this is me,
Yes.
If there's a concern about scholarships, what does a person going to college need a lot of money for? Housing. Do we have a housing crisis? Yes. Do students contribute to it? Yes. Okay. So I said, well, if I was going back in college, I said I might want to live in that stable with about 75 other students in a fixed up, beautiful dormitory at Fort Missoula, and that's part of my scholarship to go to school.
I think we could open a whole new can of worms and get into some real heavy philosophical discussions. But the question is, do we have housing? We have a housing shortage in Missoula, or do we have affordable housing
Right.
shortage in Missoula?
Right.
And I haven't gotten that sifted out in my head
Right.
yet. Basically, I think we have housing. I don't think we have affordable housing.
Hello, you're on the air.
The thing that interests me on this, outside of all of this, is that the university feels the land that they want to sell out there is $5,000 an acre. That they bought land in the East Missoula Canyon at $110,000 an acre.
I think I touched on that at the beginning of
I'm
this.
sorry.
Yeah, no, that's all right. It's because other people like you came in late. Yeah, I mean, I think it's. I mean, some people would say, well, that's apples and oranges. But I'm just since I don't have a lot of experience with a lot of money, it does strike me, and it strikes a lot of people as somehow being illogical. I think they haven't completed that purchase, by the way, but that they're in the process of negotiating what you're talking about out there in the Hell's Canyon area. I believe it's 7 acres, and I believe the price that I've read figures out to be about $127,000 an acre for a parking lot. Yeah, thank you. Was that it? I guess.
Yeah, that's.
Let's see. What else have we got here?
Well, I think, there's one thing I think that we want to advance is that even though we've received these 5,000 signatures as of last night, it's important for people that want to have a voice and want to state to the community and to the city council their strong feelings on this, that they not sit back and say, well, we've reached our goal. What we should do is all of those that have deep concerns regarding this project, and for a lot of different reasons, and you can even just see sitting here, we're not necessarily in total agreement, and so that these citizens should come forth and sign the petition and support the petition drive, because on Tuesday, we want to be able to come forth and show very firmly and very strongly the deep feelings that we knew existed back in December, that somehow we didn't translate those well enough to the city council to let them understand how strong these feelings were. And so by coming forth in big numbers, it will cause everyone to sit back and say, wait a minute, maybe we may need to take a different approach on issues like this that are as critical to a broad spectrum of the public.
There's another point that.
Excuse me. I'd like to.
Go ahead.
Hello, you're on the air.
Yeah, I'd like to say a couple things. First off, I signed the petition not because I want particular to save the fort, but I didn't like the way it was pushed through city council and whatnot. And I also don't like, well, if the university wanted money, why I didn't think that was the best way for them to get money, to just kind of shovel it off. So I want it to go. I think it's something that should go before the people. My comments I keep hearing people referring to open space, and to me, the greatest open space of Missoula is outside of Missoula, not in Missoula. And if we continue to develop out into Grant Creek and Miller Creek and whatnot, there is no countryside. It's only, I mean, it's just urban sprawl. And, you know, really, what is it? It's knapweed. I mean, if you go out there and look, other than the building sites and the area immediately around the buildings, really all it is acres of knapweed.
Right.
I think if
You're talking about isn't what's called, it sounds like you could be a proponent of what's called infill development, where you take areas that are within a city or an urban area and take advantage of them and develop them.
well, yeah, and you know, and I keep hearing people talking about pollution, you know, because of, you know, the growth and whatnot. Well, if I need a house and the only place I can build a house is out on Big Flat, my only option to get to work in Missoula is to drive.
Right, right.
If Fort Missoula is on the bus route.
Right.
I could ride the bus if I lived there.
Well, I mean, the gentlemen here with me were saying, you know, that the divergence of why our concern is great, you know, among the citizenry of Missoula. Like yourself, you know, probably would be willing to consider, you know, like let's take the dormitory and the stable example.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you know, that's up for grabs with me. So
Let's let the people of Missoula decide that, though, whether it be
Yeah.
made into
And
a
that's
dormitory.
that's why I signed. Another concern that I'd just quickly like to throw in.
you bet.
I'm an avid fisherman, and the area down below the fort happens to be some fairly good fishing. But people in four-wheel drives have rutted the area up so bad, and then, you know, every so often somebody decides to dump a truckload of garbage down there. Where, you know, if there was one paved track down there and a parking area, I think people might stay on the track, maybe.
I think what you've addressed is a central problem. This particular property has been deemed surplus land by the university, and as such, there hasn't been a lot of care recently, certainly, and I don't know the long-term history of the care of the property. And if it were turned into, say, a parkland or open space land, you could have controlled fishing access to provide for what you're talking about, and not have all the ruts and the four-wheel drive free-for-all that has taken place there. I mean, and that is a side benefit, and it still would provide for the great. I hope you're not getting my favorite brown trout out of there now.
Oh, no, I put it back.
Okay.
But I enjoyed catching it. Thanks a lot.
Hey, thanks for calling.
Thank you.
But at the same time, certain development, and again, this is one of my pet peeves, is we are not anti-development. Certain development there could possibly make that other than something than, quote, you know, a bunch of rotten knapweed. Take a look at Larchmont Golf Course. When I was running around that area in 1975, it did not have the knapweed, you know, that it has now. But it had knapweed, and that was where I can remember people taking their dogs, and there was somebody, believe there was a couple of falconers out there, and they had pigeons and things. Anyhow, why not? Can it be developed into something other than? You know, development does not preclude, or non-development does not preclude that knapweed.
There's something also that we need to address in the article on the from the Missoulian. The Missoulian indicated that the group had taken a revenge attitude on the university, and we want to make it very clear that the group as a whole is not attacking the university and is not attacking the city council.
No way.
We recognize the importance of the university to the community. It brings a tremendous amount of cultural diversity. It brings a strong economic base, and it brings a broad exchange of ideas. In fact, that broad exchange of ideas is something that we're promoting here with this proposition. But we definitely support the university and would like to ensure that the community knows and the university knows that we're not damning the university in this process.
No way.
Well, gentlemen, my producers are telling me that we have about 30 seconds, but I know they'll give me an extra 30 so that we can make a gracious exit. I want to thank you for coming down and thanking you for your work on this issue. And I think that the viewers should be reminded once again that this is the Save the Fort petitioners, and you've got till Tuesday to sign the petition if you want the right to vote on whether to approve or disapprove City Council's action on Fort Missoula development. And I think that's it. We'd like to talk some more, but the crew is tired. Our volunteer crew, Richie Doyle, Jeff Smith, Terry Jimerson, Julie Smith, and Andy Thogerson. Thanks a lot. Bring up the music. This is a public conversation. We'll be back in 2 weeks with a live show, 8 o'clock in the evening.
Good job.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks
All right.
for that.